So I've spent like a few minutes trying to record this video. I just don't know what to say because I'm kind of just in shock that a Saw movie besides one is actually this good. B, a 10th installment in a franchise is actually good. C, a 10th installment in the Saw franchise is actually good. So you can imagine my shock and my awe at this and my confusion to try and do this video. Anyways, with all that out of the way, my name is Carter. I love talking about movies, music, comics, and games. I know one person is harping on me for that. I'll get to the movies. Nope, I talk about movies. I'll get to the music, comics, and games. Just give me a minute. I'm taking my time, dude. I'm in college classes. I got work. You get off my back. But anyways, I just got out of Saw X, and Saw X follows Jigsaw, aka John Kramer, after the events of Saw 1, but before the events of Saw 2, as he goes to Mexico to try and do a new experimental treatment to cure his cancer so that he doesn't have cancer anymore. Kind of self explanatory. Good one, Carter. And when that treatment doesn't quite go the way he wants it to, he decides to take revenge on the people who wronged him. And this, as soon as it starts, just stands out from the other Saw movies. It starts off quiet. And I actually really dug that. I dug that vibe. It starts off just quiet. You follow John Kramer. There's a nice title card. I don't know why. The title card was very satisfying. Just big plain text in red. And I was like, so simple, but so effective. Just so effective. There's nothing like a nice title card in a movie, you know? Ooh. And that score by Charlie Clouser, man, that was a good score. He's got some good scores. Anyways, the direction by Kevin Greutert, I guess just getting right into the positives, the direction by Kevin Greutert is pretty phenomenal. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I really enjoyed his direction here. And I feel like the script and the direction here were actually pretty good. And I'll be the first one to say, I am surprised that the script and the direction in a Saw movie are actually really good. And I know that sounds bad, because some people out there might be really big Saw fans. I personally am not the biggest Saw fan. The first movie is one of my favorite horror thrillers, one of my favorite horror movie thriller movies of all time. Honestly, that movie is like a massive inspiration to me as a film student. Knowing that James Wan and Leigh Whannell got that made on a shoestring budget and just exploded their careers is like, man, maybe one day I'll have as much imagination in my head as Leigh Whannell has in half his body and be as cool as James Wan, but maybe not. So going into this, I was like, okay, I enjoy the other Saw movies. I'm not a big fan of all of them, as you'll see in my ranking video, but there are a few that I enjoy. But I've been hearing, positive buzz. I tried to stay away from a lot of the reviews just to be sure my expectations didn't get too high. So I walked into this movie kind of cautiously optimistic, but the more I heard, the more excited I was. And honestly, I wasn't let down. Granted, I'm not a big fan of the franchise, so if you're a massive super fan, you might be going in expecting just balls to the wall, traps, gore, Jigsaw spouting off philosophies, traps, gore. And while you do get a lot of Jigsaw spouting off his philosophies, you do also get some good traps and good gore, but it's not constant like I was expecting. The movie is actually playing it fairly conservative for a good amount of time, setting up John Kramer and Jigsaw so you really feel for him. You see his philosophy in action throughout the film, but more importantly, you see John Kramer in action throughout the film, and that's something that I've been itching for in the Saw franchise for about 20 years. Granted, I'm 21, so that's not possible, but ever since I saw the first Saw movie, rewatched him, I was like, man, I would love to see more of John Kramer in the central role, and he's kind of dead after the third one, so you can't do that. But they managed to make a prequel and managed to make it good. So putting Jigsaw in the spotlight here really worked for me. Tobin Bell is always the best part of these movies, and finally someone was like, let's make a movie about that, and it worked. Tobin Bell delivers a great performance here, one full of anger, one full of like vengeance, and also really just sad. You have to watch him deal with the fact that he is dying, nothing will save him, and you get to see him have this hope. He has this hope, he cherishes it, nourishes it, and other people, these people that try and give him that experiment, I don't even know, treatment, they nourish that hope. They have him, do all these things. They have him jump through these hoops, come to Mexico. They get him all excited. And when that hope is ripped away, I gotta be honest, you really feel it. It's a great scene when you watch John Kramer realize everything that he has been hoping for the last little bit, for the whole movie, is just gone like that. And you know it's coming, obviously, but it doesn't make it any less impactful. And that speaks a lot of testament to the script and direction that even though you know something is coming, that it still hits hard, it still hits home, the emotions are still in check. But I know a lot of you don't really care about that. You just care about those dope traps that kill people. And yeah, there's a lot of those too. There's a few traps in particular that have me wincing at the screen. Oh man, there's just a few of them. Time will tell to see if they are the greatest of all time. Big traps like the reverse bear trap, the rack. Ugh. Oh man, that one gets me. The shotgun carousel, any of those. But I enjoyed them. I think they were creative enough. They worked very well within the reality of the story. They're very personalized. Sometimes you watch a Saw movie and it's the traps can be interchangeable for people. Like the creatives are like, this trap is sweet, not really a message behind it specific to a person, so we're just going to give it to this person. In this movie, it feels like the traps are specific to the person, specific as to why, how, and what they do in the trap, and I really enjoyed that. A few traps in particular are very specific, and I really dug that. And then just going into the second and third act, when everything starts to ramp up, I felt it. You know, they do a great job of making you feel it. The stakes are rising, the tension is rising. What is going to happen? Who's going to live in the game? Who's going to die? And I really enjoyed that. And my biggest issue with a lot of the Saw movies is the editing. I'm sure it's just to get around the MPAA, but that frantic editing just bugs me so bad, especially in the later Saw movies when it's like, let's see if I can edit that. But it just bugs me. But here, they do a great job of getting that classic Saw feel with the crazy editing and direction, but also toning it down to a way where it seems more palatable, where it seems not more generalized. I hate to say that word like it's just like cookie cutter, but in a way that isn't so over the top in your face, like shoving it down your throat. And I really enjoyed that. The score, again, is fantastic. The direction is great. The cast is all pretty good. And the characters are very decent as well. There's a few characters that I really enjoyed. There's some that you love to hate that are just so despicable. And my last positive that I'll give for the movie is, although it is 2 hours long, the pacing is actually pretty good. They do let the movie breathe. You get a lot of time with John Kramer, and I just really appreciate that. There's a lot of great scenes in the movie with him and with Amanda. Shawnee Smith does great in that role, despite her prosthetics not looking great. I'll get to that. But I just really enjoyed the character work on John Kramer. But the movie isn't perfect. It definitely has its flaws. So getting right into the mix, although Shawnee Smith is great as Amanda, she brings that crazy psycho back. Just the prosthetics, they don't do anything to de-age her. They just kind of slap a wig. It looks terrible. Kind of dragged me out of the movie because Tobin Bell, obviously he's aged, but it just fits the movie because he's decrepit, he has cancer, he's old. But Shawnee Smith, she's supposed to be 20 years ago, and they just didn't do anything with that. I don't know if it's budget, anything. It just didn't work for me, and it took me a little bit out of the movie every time I saw it. However, I really enjoyed her performance. Another mix that comes to mind here is with John Kramer's philosophy. They do a great job of challenging it within the film. However, some traps just felt cruel. Like, it feels like you see people, and I'm trying not to spoil, you see people do what the trap requires, and then they get overly punished for it, if that makes sense. And it might not make sense until you've seen the film, and I'm really trying to avoid spoilers, but, and I know that's kind of ironic to complain about within a Saw movie, but, and moving into the negatives, and this isn't really a negative, but this movie, I'm not sure how rewatchable it will be just because I don't love the franchise. I love the first Saw. I can enjoy some within the franchise, but I don't ever think, man, I can't wait to watch Saw 6. I can't wait to watch Jigsaw. I can't wait to watch Saw 3. I'm like, okay, I'll watch Saw 1 every year around Halloween, and that's about it. I'll kind of just leave it there, and maybe I'll watch Spiral or Saw 6 every few years. And that's it. I don't know how often I would go and rewatch this movie, and it's not a knock against the movie. It's just the franchise in its content is just so bleak to where sometimes the movies just feel so mean. And I know that's ironic. I really love horror movies. I love slasher movies, but the Saw series in particular, just torture, the games just sometimes don't really aren't for me. For me, I'm not sure how rewatchable this movie would be. I did really enjoy it, honestly, on the first watch. I don't know if my score would go down on the second watch. I don't think it would go up, but it would either stay the same or go down, just depending on rewatchability. And finally, my big negative against the movie is just the third act. A few things don't tie up as neatly as they should. The twist I enjoyed. but it just felt like there was more to be earned within that third act, especially the last 5 minutes of the movie. I really enjoyed where it was going, and then it just ended so abruptly, and I was kind of missing out on some more Saw content, if I'm being honest. And I wish that it either had 5 more minutes in the movie or they just closed out a plot thread completely. Instead, they leave it hanging. It is a prequel between 1 and 2, and I'm sure Lionsgate, after this makes money, they'll greenlight another one, and we'll get more movies with more answers. But as for right now, that is my big kind of negative against the movie, besides rewatchability, is that this third act, especially the last 5 minutes, kind of left me a little unfulfilled, unsatisfied. However, overall, guys, I really dug Saw X. I'm honestly very surprised. I walked in with middle expectations, and it blew me away. I was really impressed with the character work for John Kramer and the script. It was pretty tightly written. They do a great job of making you enjoy some characters, hate some other ones, and actually feel sympathy for John Kramer, which in my book is a win. Saw X really delivers with the traps and violence. Although none of them might not be as iconic as the first few movies, there are a few in here that really had me wincing. Overall, I'm going to give Saw X a 7, 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it, but I would have to be in a certain mood to watch this movie just because of its very, very bleak content. But I do think that they knocked it out of the park with this one, and it's one of my favorite Saw movies for sure. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have you seen Saw X? If so, what did you think about it? Where does it rank within your franchise ranking? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, my name is Carter. Have a great rest of your day.